listen to me very carefully. There are moments in a woman's life when she walks into a room and no one sees the weight she's carrying. No one hears the silent screams of her soul. No one notices the strength it takes for her to smile while bleeding internally. But God sees her pain. And the greatest mistake you can make in your brokenness is assuming heaven is silent just because man has been careless. Pain is not the end. Pain is information. It is God's diagnostic tool to reveal what you've tolerated for too long, trusted for too long, or chased for too long that was never designed to stay. And the first thing God does when he begins to restore the heart of a wounded woman is he detaches her. Not from love, not from hope, but from emotional dependency. You see, emotional detachment is the graduation of a woman from the approval of man into the identity of her purpose. It is the evidence that she has outgrown the need to be rescued and has awakened to the truth that she was never created to be completed, only to be complemented. When God sees a woman in pain, he doesn't rush in with a bandage. He starts with the roots. Because divine healing is not a surface event. It is a systemic uprooting of everything you believed about yourself that came from someone who mishandled your worth. You think you're forgotten, but you are being hidden. You think you're being rejected, but you are being redirected. You think you're alone, but you are being reintroduced to God. Sometimes he has to allow the betrayal to expose your addiction to validation. Sometimes the heartbreak is not punishment, it's protection. Because God will never allow what threatens your destiny to stay past its expiration date. So what does he do? Silences the noise of your soul. He withdraws you from the people who kept you emotionally pendant. He redefines what love looks like by taking your eyes off who hurt you and putting them back on who created you. You've been waiting for them to apologize, but God is waiting for you to awaken. Because the real restoration is not in who comes back, it's in who you become when they don't. A healed woman is not one who forgets. She is one who remembers without bondage. She recalls the pain, but no longer bows to it. She walks through the memories, but now she walks past them. And the sign that you are being restored is that your peace no longer depends on who stays or who goes. You are not cold. You are clear. You are not bitter. You are better. You don't hate them. You honor yourself. God gives you back your vision before he gives you a companion. He restores your voice before he restores the relationship. He teaches you to stand alone before he ever calls someone to walk with you. That's the order of restoration. Because God will not share your identity with someone who tried to redefine it. You are his before you are anyone's. You've cried long enough for what left. Now it's time to give birth to what's coming. Pain is not your identity. It is your introduction to the next level of purpose. You've mourned who didn't choose you. Now God is about to reveal why he did. God does not ignore a woman's silent tears. He responds through divine timing, not emotional noise. Tears are not a weakness. They are a language. They speak what words cannot. And every tear that falls from the eyes of a wounded woman carries a message that reaches heaven before it ever dries. But God does not move because of emotion. He moves because of alignment. His timing is not dictated by how loud your pain is, but by how prepared your purpose must. That's why you must understand, just because he hasn't answered when you cried doesn't mean he hasn't heard. Silence is not absence. Delayed response is not divine neglect. When a woman is wounded, she often believes that the loudness of her sorrow will trigger a miracle. She may think if she cries harder, begs more, or breaks down in desperation, that heaven will accelerate its plan. But God is not governed by emotion. He is governed by design. He sees the end from the beginning, and in his divine wisdom, he waits. Not because he is cruel, but because he is calculated. If he heals you too soon, you'll return to what broke you. If he restores too quickly, you might misinterpret relief for recovery. So he waits for you to release not just the pain, but the attachment to what caused it. Every silent tear is a seed. Not one drop is wasted. But the harvest of healing comes not when you feel ready, but when he knows you're aligned with what he's doing in you. The tears draw him near, but it's your posture that provokes his movement. He sees every lonely night, every silent car ride, every smile that hides a storm, and he is not ignoring you. He is preparing a response that matches your. Healing begins when you stop waiting for closure from man and begin seeking clarity from God. One of the greatest prisons a wounded woman can live in is the expectation that the one who caused the pain will also be the one to explain it. But closure is not a spiritual necessity, it is an emotional illusion. The truth is, many people who hurt you never had the capacity to articulate their actions because they were functioning out of their own brokenness. And when you wait for them to give you closure, you hand them the key to your peace. But peace does not come from their apology, it comes from your revelation. God never designed you to be healed by answers from man. He designed you to be restored by alignment with him. Closure is something the world taught you to chase, but the kingdom teaches you to release. And when you shift from demanding answers to desiring truth, you begin to see what really matters. You don't need an explanation to be free. You need perspective. You don't need them to explain why they left. You need to understand why God allowed it. You don't need them to return and fix it. You need to move forward with the understanding that their absence is often a part of your assignment. Clarity from God does what closure from people never could. It sets you free from rehearsing pain, replaying conversations, and reopening wounds. It shows you that the pain was not punishment, but preparation. And when God gives you clarity, you no longer cry over what walked away. You start rejoicing over what's being built within. You stop negotiating with your past and start cooperating with your future. Because once your heart aligns with his truth, the need for closure dissolves in the presence of purpose. Emotional detachment is not hardness, it is holiness. It is the sanctification of your peace. The world has confused detachment with coldness, but in the kingdom, detachment is a discipline. It is the spiritual maturity to no longer allow your emotions to be governed by circumstances, people, or the opinions of those who were never assigned to your destiny. When a woman learns to detach emotionally, she is not disconnecting from love, she is realigning with truth. She is not becoming bitter, she is becoming better at protecting what is sacred, her peace, her mind, her calling. God does not call you to be numb, he calls you to be discerning. There's a difference between having a soft heart and an unstable soul. Emotional instability is when your mood is dictated by someone else's presence or absence. Holiness is when your peace remains intact regardless of who stays, who goes, or who doesn't understand you. Detachment means you no longer place your identity in responses. You place it in revelation. A woman of purpose learns that not every conflict requires reaction, not every disappointment deserves a breakdown, and not every relationship is meant to be permanent. And so she detaches, not to escape pain, but to preserve clarity. She removes her heart from the chaos of trying to be everything to everyone, and she anchors herself in the one place that cannot be shaken: God's. Emotional detachment is when you no longer chase closure, approval, or validation. You become anchored, not anxious. You become still, not shaken. You are no longer tossed around by emotional waves because your peace is no longer for sale. Holiness is not just moral purity, it is emotional stability. And when you detach, you don't lose love, you find it at its highest frequency. Divine, unconditional, and unwavering. Your value is not in who left, but in who God is making you to become. One of the greatest deceptions the enemy uses against a wounded woman is to convince her that her worth was tied to someone else's ability to stay. But people do not determine your value, they reveal your vision. And sometimes God allows them to walk away, not because you weren't valuable, but because they couldn't carry the weight of who you are becoming. Their departure is not a reflection of your deficiency. It's a sign of divine protection. When someone walks away, the enemy will whisper that you were not enough. But God is declaring that you are too much for where they were willing to grow. You were not created to shrink in order to keep people comfortable. You were created to expand, to evolve, to walk in dominion. And anyone who cannot endure that process is not assigned to your future. Your value is not defined by those who misunderstood your heart, but by the one who formed you before time began. God is more invested in your transformation than your comfort. And if he allows a disconnection, it is because he sees the distraction. He sees the detour. He sees what you don't. And so he removes, he separates, he closes doors you prayed would stay open, because he knows what's ahead requires a version of you that is not chained to rejection, but clothed in revelation. You must stop grieving who left and start rejoicing over who you're becoming, because every loss is a layer. Every heartbreak is a refining fire. And every step forward is a testimony that your value was never in what you had, but in who you are becoming through God's process of restoration and purpose. When God allows heartbreak, it's to remove what threatens your destiny, not to punish your desire. Pain is never random in the hands of a purposeful God. He is too wise to be cruel and too strategic to be careless. So when your heart is broken, it's not because God is distant, it's because he's deeply involved. He sees what you don't. He hears conversations you were never meant to be part of. He discerns motives you couldn't detect. And sometimes the heartbreak you blame on the enemy is actually the mercy of God intervening in silence. You may have desired something deeply, prayed for it passionately, and believed it was right, but God does not give you what simply feels good. He gives you what aligns with destiny. And if he allowed something to break, it is only because it could not be part of what he is building. It may have looked perfect to your heart, but it was a threat to your future. You wanted love, but God wanted legacy. You wanted comfort, but God wanted character. And so he broke what was never supposed to remain. God never withholds to hurt you. He withholds to protect you. And even in your tears, he is orchestrating alignment, because purpose requires pruning. Destiny demands detachment. And heartbreak is often the loudest sign that you are being preserved for something greater than your desire. So stop asking why it happened and start asking what it protected you from. God does not waste pain. He uses it to purify your perspective, to purge your attachments, and to push you into your next. The heartbreak was not punishment. It was a prophetic release. It was God removing what could not follow you into the future he designed before you even knew you'd need healing. Purpose attracts pain because pain is the soil where divine assignments are often born. A woman marked by destiny will never live a life absent of struggle, because heaven does not entrust greatness to comfort. Before God gives you a platform, he builds you in private through pressure. And the pain you've endured is not a curse. It's confirmation that your life carries something hell fears and heaven needs. Pain didn't come to destroy you. It came to prepare you. It came to stretch your spirit, refine your motives, and deepen your dependence on God. When you are chosen, pain becomes your classroom. It teaches you discernment. It teaches you resilience. It teaches you how to hear God when everyone else is silent. You begin to understand that the most dangerous people in the kingdom are not the loudest. They are the ones who have suffered deeply, yet still believe. God doesn't anoint the untested. He anoints the broken, the crushed, the ones who have been through enough to know that ministry is not performance, it's birth. Your pain is sacred. It is not wasted. It is forming in you a capacity to carry more than you ever imagined, because your purpose requires weight, and God will never give you a mantle you have no muscle for. So he trains you through loss. He disciplines you through disappointment. He reveals himself not in the avoidance of pain, but in the endurance of it. Pain becomes your proof, not that God left you, but that he's shaping you. The very thing you thought would break you is the very thing God is using to build the foundation of your assignment. Purpose is not born on stages. It is born in sorrow, in silence, and in the sacred tension between who you were and who you are becoming. God often allows isolation to produce revelation. Loneliness is not always the absence of people. It is often the presence of divine separation. When a woman is called to something greater, God will begin to withdraw her from what distracts, dilutes, or distorts her identity. Not because she is being punished, but because she is being positioned. Isolation becomes the womb where clarity is conceived, and in the quiet, God speaks what cannot be heard in the noise of social circles and emotional attachments. Many times, the pain of isolation feels like rejection. You wonder why they stop calling, why the invitations stop coming, why connections you relied on suddenly dissolve. But what feels like people walking away is often God clearing space for your ears to hear and your spirit to be realigned. Because revelation does not come in crowds, it comes in caves. It comes in the silence of surrendered moments, when your heart is no longer chasing affirmation, but open to instruction. God is not trying to make you lonely, he's trying to make you ready. And in the stillness, he begins to reveal who you are without the labels, without the opinions, and without the pressure to perform. He begins to strip away false identities and misplaced priorities so that what's left is pure, authentic, and deeply rooted in him. In that secret place, you begin to hear his voice more clearly, not just in what he says, but in what he doesn't allow. Isolation is preparation. It is where God downloads strategy, imparts strength, and births vision. You are not being ignored, you are being refined. And until you learn to walk with God in solitude, you will always depend on others to carry what only revelation can sustain. The wilderness is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your transformation. Forgiveness is the gate that unlocks healing, not a feeling that waits for time to pass. Many women live years bound, not because of what was done to them, but because of what they refuse to release. Forgiveness is not saying that what happened was right. It is acknowledging that holding on to it is no longer worth your peace, your purpose, or your power. The longer you carry the offense, the longer you delay the restoration, because God cannot pour fresh oil into a vessel filled with old wounds. You are not forgiving for them. You are forgiving for you. You are releasing yourself from emotional captivity. Unforgiveness is not protection, it is poison. It slowly hardens the heart, clouds the mind, and disconnects the spirit from the presence of God. Forgiveness is not about trusting them again. It's about trusting God enough to let him be your defender. It's about understanding that vengeance belongs to the Lord, and his justice is always more perfect than your retaliation. When you forgive, you are not saying they deserve peace. You are declaring that you do. You deserve to be free. You deserve to wake up without bitterness in your bones. You deserve to walk into your calling without chains on your soul. And God cannot restore what you still refuse to release. Healing is not delayed because God is unwilling. It is delayed because the heart is still holding on to something He told you to lay down. Forgiveness is a decision that aligns your heart with heaven. It is the unlocking of a spiritual door that allows healing, wisdom, and restoration to flow freely. It does not require the apology. It requires your obedience. And the moment you forgive is the moment heaven begins to restore what pain tried to steal from you. Wholeness is not the absence of brokenness, but the acceptance of divine healing. Too many women wait to feel unscarred before they believe they are whole. But God does not remove the evidence of your past. He redeems it. Wholeness is not pretending it didn't hurt. It's standing in the truth that what hurt you no longer controls you. You don't need to erase the pain to be restored. You need to surrender it. God doesn't work through denial. He works through surrender. Wholeness is the understanding that your scars are no longer wounds, they are testimonies. They tell the story of where you've been, but they no longer define where you're going. A woman who is whole doesn't need to be perfect. She needs to be honest, open, and obedient to the healing process of God. She knows her value is not reduced by her pain. It is refined through it. She embraces the truth that even though she was broken, she is now held together by grace. Being whole does not mean you no longer feel. It means you feel without falling apart. It means you can love without losing yourself. It means you can serve without being used. Wholeness is the fruit of healing, discipline, and spiritual maturity. It comes when you stop trying to fix yourself and start allowing God to rebuild you from the inside out. It's not about returning to who you were before the pain. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be because of it. God does not call you to be unbroken. He calls you to be complete in Him. And when He restores your soul, He does not skip the cracks. He fills them with glory. That is true wholeness, not the erasure of pain, but the presence of God dwelling where pain once lived. When God restores a woman, He doesn't return her to what she lost. He elevates her into what she was always meant to become. Restoration is not a rewind, it is a divine upgrade. God does not simply give you back what was taken. He transforms you so completely that what you lost becomes irrelevant compared to what you've gained. His restoration is not about replacing what walked away. It's about revealing what was hidden inside of you all along. When a woman goes through pain, betrayal, or abandonment, she often prays for things to go back to the way they were. But God doesn't take you backward. He takes you deeper. He strips away false dependencies, shallow connections, and misplaced identities. And in that process, He reveals your real value, your real strength, your real voice. He doesn't give you your old life back. He gives you new vision, new purpose, and new authority. The restoration of God is strategic. He rebuilds not just what was broken, but what was missing. He doesn't just mend your heart, He fortifies it. He doesn't just remove the pain, He replaces it with discernment. He teaches you how to walk in grace without needing validation, how to love without losing boundaries, and how to rise without apologizing for your healing. What once made you weep becomes the very thing that sharpens your wisdom. You won't look like what you went through, not because it didn't shape you, but because God's glory will outshine the evidence of your suffering. His restoration leaves no room for pity, only purpose. And when He restores you, He makes sure everyone around you knows that what was meant to break you has now built a woman too powerful to be ignored, too wise to be deceived, and too healed to be held back. You were never forgotten. You were never overlooked. Every tear you cried in silence, heaven recorded. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every lonely night, it was not wasted. God saw it all. And while the world may have dismissed your pain, heaven designed your restoration. You are not just a woman who survived. You are a woman being rebuilt by the hands of a king who never abandons what he starts. You are not broken beyond repair. You are chosen for greater. The pain did not come to define you, it came to refine you. And now the same God who allowed the fire is the God who is pulling you out as gold, not to be fragile, but to be faithful. Not to be pitied, but to walk in power. He is making you a voice, not just a vessel, a lighthouse, not just a survivor. Your scars are not signs of defeat. They are proof of divine preservation. So rise, woman of God, detach from what drained you, release what rejected you, and walk forward with a new strength, not because you feel ready, but because he has declared you restored. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You have heaven's endorsement. You are whole, you are worthy, you are dangerous to the darkness, and the pain that once tried to destroy you has now become the platform for your destiny. This is your season, not of recovery, but of resurrection. Walk in it.